So before we start, we wanted to, so we're talking about car camping 102, and this is part one of the series. We're going over the basics. If you have any questions, please ask throughout the video. We're happy to answer it as we go. And we always hold a Q&A at the end. So you can always ask questions at the end if you can't think about it now. But this time we wanted to put on disclaimer. Despite we're talking about car camping, we still are advocating for local travel as much as possible because there's a bunch of different restrictions throughout the county. So just please be mindful of that. Just make sure you know before you go, do your research, check all your sources, because not one source is just, make sure your source is correct. There's other apps like All Trails, but sometimes you check all your sources because directly from where you go. And thirdly, if you so determined to go, we do want you to adventure safely. So if you're in the Bay Area or Central Coast, please reach out to me. And then Marcella, you can talk about on behalf of you.
Yeah, so I'm in the Portland, Oregon area. I could basically talk about anywhere from the northwest coast to the mountains and a little bit of Southwest Washington as well. But yeah, I totally second what you're saying. I think something that is definitely especially important around here, but I think that's the case in a lot of states, with travel during COVID, is being mindful of the communities that you're driving through. I know you and I talked about this offline a little bit. At least here in Oregon, when you are driving through more rural areas, you might be driving inside of a Native American reservation. They have been hit very hard by COVID, and so it's especially important that you know where you're going to be driving, and just be mindful of the fact that if you're driving a longer distance, you're potentially bringing, especially with the new strains, bringing potentially more COVID to these already hard-hit communities. So something to honestly always be aware of, but especially during COVID, I think it's important.
So now we can talk about the fun stuff. So if you have any questions, please type in. You can DM us or you can ask at the very end. So we want to go over basic equipment. So the one thing that stands on top of my mind is that you got to separate car camping from backpacking. It's two completely separate things. It's still camping, but whenever you decide to buy camping gear, don't think I'm going to get backpacking gear for camping. Don't think that way. I highly recommend not to do that, because car camping, you don't have to worry about the weight. It's all about what your car can pack, and your car carries that weight. Backpacking, it's about what you carry in your back, and it is a whole different conversation we'll come across later on. But still, with backpacking, there's special equipment you use, and it's all about the lightweight. There's certain brands, it's not actually the brands doesn't really matter. It's a lot smaller brands that I love a lot that are actually a little bit more affordable, but that's a whole different thing. Car camping, you can, the sky's the limit. Actually, the car is the limit. What your car can carry is the limit. And brands doesn't even matter. I actually end up bringing a lot of stuff that's it's just sitting in my house, or someone just gave to me. So I want to kind of reiterate that. So maybe it will give you you up, so you don't have to think too hard about car camping, because that's the easiest thing. Car camping, I'll bring my own pillows. I bring pots from my kitchen because I'm just one. I don't want to buy separate pots and pans for camping, but I just kind of want to reiterate that. So that's the topic. Number one, car camping is all about. That is about the weight. It's all about your car can carry. So we can go over to the next thing to kind of dive into it, which is regarding the tent and shelter. Do you want to go into that, Marcella?
Sure, yeah. Especially because we've been very, very lucky with our tent. We bought our tent, I don't know, 10 years ago at this point. No, it's probably been a little less than that, but at just Bass Pro Shops, online, two-person tent. One thing that's super important is the rain cover or rain fly. That's apparently the official term. And if it rains and your tent is leaking, this happened to a friend of mine when we went camping with a group once. She ended up just sleeping in the car. So that's another maybe like good side benefit of car camping as opposed to backpacking. Um, but yeah, I think those were kind of the two main like tent related things. You definitely want to make sure that you can, it's sealed properly once you're inside so that you don't get bugs. We always keep our tent closed for
Yep.
that reason and stuff like that.
Me too.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, and then for us, the car camping, like you don't have to get like a two-person tent. Like I think we have like a 20-year-old tent. Like we just got handed down for us. Steven's been
Nice.
using this as a kid. And I think it's a 6-person or 8-person tent. But what's so cool about those big tents, it's like ginormous. It like puts our backpacking tent to a shame. It's probably 20 pounds, but you know what? No big deal. Because actually it's so big that we can fit an inflatable mattress in it. Think
Nice.
about that. I want to say a sound effect. I can't see that sound effect, but it's so awesome. Like you can, like it's people can call it glamping, whatever you want to call it. But I'm just like it's nice, especially for the cold weather, because the value that it's raising from like from the ground to your mattress. Usually, like most air mattresses, like for backpacking, it's like 2 or 3 sleeping pads. But ours is probably like a 20.
Yep, yep.
Oh, we
Someone just
gotta,
posted,
yes.
they lived in their van for 3 years. It was one of the most meaningful experiences they had. Yeah, that's
Ooh,
pretty awesome.
that is.
I've never had the chance to do that. I think it's something that I would really like to do. Um, yeah, that's awesome. You got to combine backpacking with van camping. I think that's probably kind of the best of both worlds because
I think so.
definitely, definitely. I'd love to hear more about your experience. And hi, Erica. She
Yes.
just logged in.
Oh yeah,
Um,
Erica's be next on our next week's chat. But yeah, we should chat. Like I would love to talk about your experience via Zoom. That would be so cool. We can do a call together.
Absolutely.
We'll hit you up because I
For
love hearing
sure.
people's stories and what they do. I think it's so awesome because there's no right or wrong way how to do it. And I think the best of the most world is great because I love backpacking, but I love camping because I'm actually in it. Don't feel rushed at all, and I get to sleep there and just don't have to worry about bringing stuff. So
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And um yeah, so I think that pretty much covers the tent and shelter. I mean,
mhm.
especially if you have a van or an RV, once you have an RV, right, that opens up a whole new
Yeah,
world. And I know my only experience with car camping is driving with a tent and then kind of setting that up and everything.
and I've seen
I
people have
yeah,
trailers too, which is really cool.
right, right, right. So there's like this whole range of things you can do, and if you have seen any of the van life kind of accounts, like they like those vans and cars are like very decked out. So
Yes, so those are
it's
other option.
pretty cool. Decked out, but I guess minimalist is also true. Like they have everything you need, but it's still all just fits in the one van
Exactly.
space.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So next
So
thing we have, yeah, go ahead.
oh,
You're
I was
on
just
it.
gonna say because it was just kind of like a really good segue into the sleeping part of having the tent because you mentioned the air mattress and the blanket and bring your own pillows. And, you know, when we've been on a road trip in the past, we definitely brought our own pillows. We still did just bring sleeping bags because, like, when you're driving a long distance, we thought it was a bit easier to just do that.
Mhm.
And we don't have like a two-person air mattress, but there's so many different options for sleeping.
Yeah.
Cots, some people like to sleep in hammocks. I've taken naps in hammocks, but
Mhm.
I've never like spent the night in one. So I'd
Yes.
be curious if anyone here has some experience with that.
Oh, yeah, I see people have hammocks too, but it's all your preference. That's what I love about, and I know that goes similar with backpacking, but with camping, I think there's a lot more options, which I think it's the coolest thing about it. Like the sky is the limit, and
Yep.
for our inflatable air mattress, we actually use it like it's what we use for guests. I purposely bought it for that. I mean, it's because I was like, oh, I bought it a little bit more because I knew we were going to use it for camping.
Nice.
But yeah, and even my phone. Just I'm trying to charge my phone. So it doesn't really work out that great. But for regarding our sleeping bags, we actually use our backpacking sleeping bags because it's 10 degrees. It's our sleeping bags are 10 degrees, so it's actually great for all the temperature. So that's the reason why we use it, but we still use a regular, like a regular blanket for the base of our for our mattress. But still, like, which is because we have the space, like, why not use that as a layer? And it could be used as an extra blanket. But yeah, we don't think too hard regarding what we sleep on.
Yeah, I think same. We just have the one set, and I don't think, again, they're just like Bass Pro Shop brand sleeping bags that we have, and they've always kept us warm anywhere between kind of summer, fall, spring. We haven't done any winter camping, so it's also not really something you can speak to, but hopefully next week, Erica can talk a bit more about that.
Yeah.
Um, haven't slept in a hammock, and I'm always doubting to take a hammock or not because I never know what the campsite will look like. Yeah, that's kind of a big part is for hammocks, unless it's one of those kind of on a stand, you kind of need two trees or something to hang it up. So there's always that. So that's very, very true. I think one kind of mistake that we made the first time we went camping was we didn't have sleeping pads. So
Oh.
that's kind of the like thin or thicker layer that you put. Basically, it shields you from the ground, as you know. And we did not sleep super well because the ground wasn't fully even, and even just having this like thin layer can be very like it's just better for your back and your neck and all that. So
Yes. And then the higher you are from the ground, the more it's like the warmer you can get. That's why it's called the RV values. That's why it's good to have like the padding. You'll sleep better. You'll sleep warmer.
yeah.
And someone commented, I tried the cabins at the state parks, no tent needed. Oh, that's
Yes.
cool. I've always wanted to try the cabins. I've seen that. And also national parks. And there's some yurts I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't tried that. I've been so kind of set on like car camping or just like backpacking. I haven't tried that, but maybe one day I will venture out. And our inflatable mattress popped in the first night of a 3-day camping trip. Oh no!
Did you have a backup pad or something like that? Because I guess at least even if the air mattress is popped, that still provides some amount of insulation and isolation from the ground. But that's all.
Yeah, that's a bummer. That's why it's also important to depend on where you decide to camp to make sure it's like not too rocky, it doesn't poke through, or how no backup. Oh, it's sad. Oh, but maybe next time if anyone does have a backpacking like a sleeping pad or just any sleeping pad to bring that. I think we brought that last time because we were unsure or what's going to happen because we actually can't when it was raining. We thought we could bring it as a backup in case you want to sleep in the car. So that could be nice, like a backup just to have that just in case something happens. Any sleeping pad. So that's a recommendation I would have. And then pillows too. I was doing pillows for my house. So we missed that regarding sleeping. And then if we're done with sleeping, we can go into cooking.
Yeah. Does anybody else have any questions about tents, sleeping, hammocks, setting up your tent?
Yes.
You can talk a bit about what happened when you went camping.
Oh, I can too. Oh my goodness. I had it was quite a trip. It wasn't anything magical. So what happened, I went to camping, it was raining and it started raining in the evening and our tent's 20 years old. But we haven't tested out in the rain ever because it's California and we were camping in the summer. So so we found out it was like in spring and summer. So we found out it's like a 1-season tent, maybe a 2-season tent. And it was leaking and it was leaking off Steven's side, not mine. And then it turns out where we're camping too is that I knew we were sleeping we were sleeping in the Mount Diablo Park, which is in Diablo Range. And what's so unique about the Diablo Range, it's that a lot of the soil, it's called Burdick soil. And Burdick soil actually there's made out of clay. And when they actually see the campground, it's like reddish because it's of clay. Mm-hmm. So I didn't know how it's going to be. But of course, the state park has these designated campsites. So they made it so like, it's okay. They won't give you a campsite that's going to be sloshed in clay.
Yeah.
Because they would have closed it. That's what's so cool when paying for these services because you're getting something a little bit more. Unless like if it's not paid and you're just camping somewhere, that I would find that really sketchy in the rain unless I do my research on that. So we did that, and it turns out where we slept, it wasn't the best decision because we should have picked the spot that was a little bit higher because you can see that spot's a little bit higher, and if it rains, it kind of funnels off downhill.
Drains
Sometimes
off.
you gotta
Yeah.
look at that. Depending on the weather, you want to pick up a little bit higher so you don't, in case if it's going to rain. So that reason we didn't pick that spot. We picked the spot that the water kind of goes down, which was a rookie 2021 mistake. And believe me, we camp all the time. Steven's an Eagle Scout, so he knows this stuff. It's just a mistake. It happens. We're humans. So where we camped, so it was raining, it was leaking, and it was cold. But what we realized when we put a tent away, which took a long time. You didn't want to do it because it's like all wet and
Soggy,
inside.
yeah.
And there was water at the bottom of our tent, bottom of our air mattress. And we're like, okay, it makes sense why we were so cold. But I had my backpacking, a sleeping bag, and he did too. So it was good for that weather. But then we took the tent out. It was like a puddle underneath. It turns out like the clay got activated. The soil activated, and I left it is like rectangle. So basically, like our where we stayed, kind of sinked, and it was like a hole, not a hole, it was kind of like a pothole in a sense.
Yeah.
But it formed to our size of our inflatable mattress, and we were like, oh my goodness, I couldn't believe it did that. But luckily, we were okay, and it's just clay, so like our air mattress was fine. But it was just so crazy to see that I had that experience, and it's another reminder why like we need to be more selective where we camp. Where we set up our tent, and we usually are really good with that, but we just made a mistake. But I would recommend that if you have a campsite, don't pick the ones that kind of everything kind of funnels into. Be the one spot that's kind of flat and things kind of roll off it, kind of like drains out of it. So that's like my one tip I have. If you are gonna go camping, don't see one spot and be like, this is my one spot. Like, look around. Usually there's multiple spots you can put your tent at.
Yeah, that's definitely true. We like to set up our tent a little bit under trees usually. And I guess for a rainstorm, maybe that's not the best idea because like branches might fall on our tent. But we've never had too many issues with that, and that just kind of adds like additional shelter, and like the ground under trees tends to be pretty compact. So something to think about. But yeah, that's pretty intense that you just had this like
yeah, I'll send you a picture. I'll show a picture later on. If anyone wants to see this picture, you can see see the tent, the indentation of the tent. I mean, not the air mattress.
Yeah.
But yes, so that's my story. Hey, all happens. We're actually going to do one conversation about just stories, a bit of we can all share our stories that we have, like funny fails, whatever. So if you're interested, stay tuned for that. I can't wait. And get all your best stories. That's going to be one of mine, because we all had our bad stories, our funny stories, like awesome stories. We're just human. And the weather, it's unpredictable. It's Mother Nature, it does whatever it wants. So we're going to have a good stories no matter what, how planned we are.
And I think it's part of the adventure when you go camping. Usually you forget something, you don't realize you need something, and it's what happened to us with cooking. We didn't always have like a little cooking camping stove. So there were definitely times when we just had to eat whatever food we brought, which used to be canned food. Now we're like a little bit better about bringing homemade food, because it's a little less wasteful, I think. But yeah, we've had to just eat cold soup in the middle of the forest because we didn't have any way to cook it.
Oh my goodness.
So
let me guess, it was in California this happened.
Yeah, we thought we were going to be able to collect firewood just like around the camp, and when we got there was no shop to like buy firewood or charcoal for the little fire pit that they had. And yeah, then we were told we were not allowed to pick up firewood from around for like fire reasons.
Sounds like
or wildfire safety. Yeah.
Was it a state park?
It was at Point Reyes, actually.
So is that a state park? Pardon me for not.
Point Reyes is, I think, like a national, I think it's actually, it's a national seashore, I think it's called.
Okay.
But yeah, it's run by the National Park Service.
Okay.
Um,
National Seashore, yeah. Yeah, because sometimes they do that though. That's why you have to check though if because we're cooking, some people do like the whole fire cooking, but there's some places that don't have stores. Some places don't sell firewood, and even though it's recommended to buy firewood at that spot, it is recommended
yeah.
because you don't want to bring something else from another part of land and just kind of like it's. I mean, I don't know what the I'm not good at these phrases. Like,
Yeah.
I forgot what the terminology is called.
Yeah, I
But
think it's something about invasive species
yes,
from like other just like other forests because you don't
yes,
know if like the wood might have some infection or anything like that. I
exactly.
think
Or carrying
that's the
critters into it. So usually they would state that. That's the whole purpose of that. But with our recent camping trip, I looked it up and it said they had no store. And actually there was I think like a welcome store. You shouldn't rely on that for camping.
hmm
So we bought our own like propane. Yeah, we bought everything of propane, charcoal, and we bought our own firewood, which is at the local grocery store. But that's the rare times that we do is that we looked on. It's like, hey, we got to buy it there. Otherwise, if you didn't bring it, you would have been cold where we say because it's like in the
Yeah.
40s, and then wintertime
hmm
it was raining. But yeah, but that's like California. Should always check, but California is really, really has so many restrictions. Even then, too, we were driving in, it said that there was no fires we drove in, and it said that signs were there on the
hmm
website said no fires. But when we actually got we got checked in. They said they allowed fires in the campsite. We're like, yes, but still, we still brought it.
That's good.
But still, like right now, like because it's low fire season, if you come to California, I said, and they say that you can there's no fires because right now it's like rainy season and it's not summer yet, and we know the fire it's like a low fire, it's a low alert for the fires. We still brought it because we're
Yeah.
like, just for the rare chance you can. And it worked out, but we would have not burned it if it was not allowed.
Yeah. And you can always save it for later because,
Yeah,
I mean, luckily the bundles aren't too big and all that.
exactly.
Yeah. But
And
otherwise for cooking, I don't know, like we've cooked over the fire
yeah.
pit. They usually have this like grate, which is always really nice. It's like cooking grate. We also bought like a pretty basic, I was looking, apparently there's like 5 different models for this, for the like Jetboil
Mhm.
backpacking stove, like portable backpacking stove that uses propane. So we typically rely on that, and it's actually been kind of nice because when we were on a long road trip a few years ago, we would like stop and after a hike, I'd be like, oh, I just want tea. So I just like in the back of my car, just like pop open this like little
Yeah, that's
baby stove.
awesome.
But it cooks our food really well. You can prop like a pan on top of it or pots and yeah, it just works pretty well, even if there are no, because we have also been to sites since campsites that don't have like a cooking grate.
Mhm.
So
The
it's,
other option. Yeah, and
yeah.
and also for us, we use Snow Peak for our backpacking. It's like literally it's a very tiny 3 prong, and it just kind of folds out this way. It's probably like half a pound. But but when we started car camping, we actually used that for like coffee and anything at
hmm
the stovetop. But then eventually we bought a stove, like a Coleman stove, which is like $40. Which is funny because our 3 prong, like half a pound stove was like probably 40
Also,
bucks. And this
yeah.
whole suitcase version of a stove is $40 too. And it, of course, one's half a pound, one probably weighs like 5 pounds. But we upgraded to that because we realized that we actually like with California because a lot of times you can't burn wood, so you have to only cook by stovetop. So we were forced
Yeah.
to get one because from like June to like September or October, you can't use fire unless you're in the higher altitude or elevation, higher elevation, which is usually the Sierras. So we
hmm
were kind of forced to get a camping stove for that reason. But there's nothing wrong with it though. It's kind of cool. It's like I'm in a like I have a kitchen So
Yeah. Yeah, I've used those when we've gone camping with friends and they brought their big like 2 burner Coleman
yeah,
stove. It's been super nice. We make pancakes and eggs and bacon
yeah.
and just
Yeah, usually it's like a breakfast thing,
yeah.
or like dinner for like the summertime in California, like where there's fire restrictions. But yeah, it's great. It's a lot of fun and it's cheap and it lasts forever. Like Steven's dad has one and it's like 20 years old. I was
Yeah.
like, and it's heavy. The heavier it is, the more durable it is. This is one
Yeah.
time that it's okay to get those heavy, bulky items that might be questionably cheap, because it'll
Yeah.
last a long time. And
Yeah.
then that's another alternative. And then the other one too is like just a grill, and we actually use our small like Smoky Joe,
Yes.
a small tiny grill. We just got it for free, so we're just using that. So like we probably could upgrade, but we're like, well, we like for free. We like free 99 and slowly
Yeah.
build our collection.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember finding an old Smoky Joe in college and just kind of, one of those things where you just kind of pick it up and
Yeah. Oh my
adopt it
gosh.
into your house. Had to leave it behind eventually, but yeah, I mean, ever since we got the little backpacking stove, that's mostly what we rely on, just because all we have to do is buy the little tank, the like propane refill. But yeah, I agree. For the tiny, tiny thing that it is, it was, I don't know, 35, $40,
Yeah, exactly.
um,
And
which is
it's
not
decent
too
enough.
bad.
But you just use what you
But
have. And that's the kind of thing, like,
yeah.
a recurring theme for car camping is that weight doesn't matter. It's all that what your car can carry. And you use what you have and you can slowly build as you go. And that's what we have done, which is the coolest thing ever. Because no one judges you based on anything. And it's just like, you know, brand names doesn't matter. It's just like, yeah, just use what you have and build as you go. And there is nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, we still bring some old pots, kettles, all of these kinds of things. And yeah, I think for sure. I mean, you don't need to buy the fancy little baby pots and pans that
Mhm.
are for backpacking, especially for car camping.
Mhm. We
Um,
didn't
and
open
I,
up for
yeah,
backpacking either. Like Steven only got a pan because he wanted to make quesadillas, which doesn't make that often.
yeah,
And it's just like, but we just used our pot, like, and it's so silly because people get these fancy like little gadgets and they spend so much money, and it's like waste half
hmm
a pound. People like $50, $30 for a pan. I'm like, I didn't even know I spent that on my own kitchen, like own kitchen
yeah,
equipment. Like I think we got a set. I got it for a deal for $50 at Kohl's, but like I even spend that in my own personal kitchen. Do I really want to spend that? Like, is that something like I really need for car camping? I just rather just
yeah,
use what I have and build my kitchen. I'll build my kitchen collection. Like I'll buy a nicer kitchen set, and then maybe that set goes to my car camping set.
right, yeah,
But it's something to think about. Everyone has their own choice and preferences, but I don't really care about names or brands. I just use what I have.
yeah, totally agree. And especially if you're just starting out, don't invest in the fancy cooking gear or because it's honestly kind of sold like gear um, until you know if this is something you want to do more often.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, we should probably move
Good
on.
to
I think drinking water and doing dishes and all of this, I think,
Okay.
is kind of a
Yes.
related topic that's pretty
Yes.
important. It's not super fun and sexy all the time, but um, I think knowing before you go if you're going to have potable water, I think is incredibly important. We've had to bring, and I know it's not the most sustainable thing, but just like 4 or 5 gallon jugs for a multi-day camping trip when we aren't sure if there's going to be water, drinking water at the place. But I don't know what your experience has been with water and boiling and filtering and
Oh, we've
um,
been lucky. Like all the places we have gone, and in California, it's because we pay for these parking campsites. Like when you pay for it, that's when you know you're gonna get the good stuff. That's why I don't care, shutting out $40. Like I know I'm gonna get a parking spot. I know there's gonna be water. I know I'm gonna be safe. I don't like. I could just drive in, know my spot's there, and not worry about
yeah,
anything. But the first time we didn't have potable water. So that was something interesting. And it's because there was a drought. And that was the reasoning. And this is a state park. Usually national parks are not like that, but state parks, it can change. But luckily, we always bring like at least a gallon of water. I think it's a gallon, or the bigger one, like this size, so you can get more,
Yeah.
or 2 gallons. But we brought that, and it, because we actually, when we always carry that because we can fill it, because if you don't, you need something to carry the water back to your campsite so you can drink out of, because else you're gonna use that to use a portable water to fill your water bottle. It just seems like a long trek to go back and forth to do that. So I recommend just doing that, just so you know, like, so that's my tip to you. Just bring a jug of water just so you can have that at your campsite and refill it. Just it's the minimal to do that. And if you can bring more if you need to, but that's the reason why we had it, and it actually came really helpful. And then also it's great if you can do campfires with that same jug. You can actually pour water. Yes, and then pour water into the campfire. But we haven't had any issues. That was the first time that ever happened to us.
Yeah, I think we've also always been lucky to either not go, because we've camped, I think most of our camping experience has actually been in California, oddly enough, in national parks. And they've always had potable water, even showers, flushable toilets, all of that. So we've been pretty lucky. I know sometimes out of laziness, I'll like you just pour a little bit of water onto my hands if I want to wash my hands at the campsite. Or do any kind of quick dish cleaning. But most places even have dedicated dishwashing stations, so you don't have to do everything at your site.
Yes, and which we recommend doing because you don't want to, as like out of like use soap and like wash things at the campground, because like all that soap, all that chemicals go into like the grass, the dirt, everything around. So that's why they have these stations, and you can clean properly and you don't harm the environment. So that's what, I guess Marcella was trying to lead to. And I usually try my best not to use chemicals or soap to get to the ground. I just have a wipe or a sanitizer, but I'm really mindful. And it even goes with brushing your teeth. I get like, that's a huge conversation people go back and forth with. Like, if you brush your teeth, like, where do you spit, or do you swallow? But that's something to think about. But I usually wash my dishes, and sometimes like a lash strip, I just try to clean it with like a towel. I was actually really messy. I was like, you know what? It's a 1-day trip. I'm just going to wash it tomorrow, and I'm going to clean what I could. And I was like, it's not worth it. I'm not wasting water for this dish. I think I just use a little bit of water and clean it out near where it would be where I can get the water at. So I can use at least one clean, but it's like, this is not worth my water. I'll just do it tomorrow in the dishwasher.
Yeah, I've definitely done that on the last day. Make sure it doesn't spill food all over your car, but
other thing too, we have to clean it somewhat, because they don't and we put that pan in the car because it would smell, and then animals can get to that and like attack your food. So that's what like double-edged sword is. You have to like somehow clean it, but keep it if it's not clean, put it in your car, so you don't want to get critters trying to dig through your food.
Yeah, that's super important, and I think leads into also a related thing, which is food storage.
Yes.
Because I've always been to a place that has a bear box per campsite. So those are always super nice. We just end up putting everything in there. And sometimes if we cook and it's already dark out, we just put, our dirty pots, pans, plates in there so we can wash them in the morning. And we can be pretty sure that, like you're saying, no critters, no bears, no raccoons or anything like that can get at that. We even put our any kind of toiletry stuff we typically put in there too.
Yes, which you should, because if you go to a place like Yosemite and there's like really a huge bear problem, they'll tell you to put everything, your toothpaste, gum, chapstick, lipstick, anything with a scent you put in there, because it can get really bad. And that's for the bear boxes we have. So I take that into heart for anywhere we go. Anything was sent, like I'm storing that. And for California, the worst, we don't like, for the Bay Area, our biggest issue is the raccoons. And also, I'm not a fan of deer. Deer just like sweat. But still, so what we would do is that we would put everything in the bear boxes, like as much as we can. Like even for backpacking for Yosemite, when we get to that campsite, we put our backpacks in the bear box. Like we're like, we put everything. I'm not risking someone getting to our stuff, because if it can fit in there, I'll do that. But for the pots and pans, we had to put it in the car, because and you can actually look at this. You can, we're going car camping or in backpacking, or but you can go to all trails or different websites too. There's comments, and people, and I looked all the comments for the Mount Diablo campground, and the one thing I kept seeing different websites, because there are multiple, are saying raccoons are a problem, and they even get through these bear boxes, and actually the raccoon boxes, and they're made out of wood. Now I know why. It's just wood. It's not steel.
Yeah.
So we're like, I'm not risking a raccoon gnawing through this wood over this fajita stench. So I put that in the car, and you'll read that too if you look at these comments. And I'm just pouring through it because I'm new to this place, and I don't trust raccoons. They're the devil. I hear horror stories about them. They don't care about you. So
no. They're very cute, and they go like this, and they're adorable, but they love rummaging in garbage. That is for sure true.
That's why you go.
Definitely. And even watching things like bear safety videos, but I think safety is like a whole other topic we probably should cover separately. I guess one more kind of piece of advice that I would give that isn't something you kind of typically think of, is like that don't bring any food into your tent either, right? Like we only bring water bottles if we get thirsty overnight or in the morning or anything like that. But water bottles, any kind of like wipes, if you're not going to shower, maybe you still want to use baby wipes to wipe yourself off after a sweaty day. Put all of that in the bear box. Again, just
and that's something that is carried on to backpacking, actually in bear country, and they will tell you that too. And that's something I keep in mind. I do it for car camping. Yes, you don't have any sense in where you sleep, unless you want the threat of having a critter come through. And for backpacking, I have stories too. So I'm waiting for that chat about all our horror stories, all of the stories we have, because once we had like a squirrel and a mice chew through our backpacking tent because of food. And it was not intentional, wasn't planned, and we thought we did it correctly. Actually, one chewed through it. We didn't. I think it's because somehow I spilled something. And I think I spelled Tang, and I guess that squirrel mom got really hyper from the sugar and just chewed through our tent, and we didn't know it did. And I'm like, you don't want something, but the mice was in our tent. We couldn't get it out. I was like screaming, and Steven just was like, "Stop screaming!" And then I was like, "Ah!" I was like, "I don't care. There's a mice in our tent." But yeah, you don't want that.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
Be careful what you have. Check what you have. That's another recommendation too, is that my lesson is that, like, I recommend for the lighting when you're camping and also backpacking too, make sure right before when the sun sets, like, make sure you have your headlamp with you, because it gets dark quickly, and I get to have too much fun, and all of a sudden it's like dark. And then you need to know where you're going, where to find things, and headlamp is so important for these issues. We got caught off guard because it's wintertime and it just got dark and we couldn't find our headlamps, and we were just like scrummaging to find it. And I felt like the guy from the weekend, I was like looking through everything, and I found one. I was trying to find my other headlamp. I was like, oh my goodness, this is like awful. But I recommend doing that so you can know where you're going, and then know like you're having food in your tent. Because I just remember that we actually ate in the tent. I was like, we got so lucky, nothing happened.
Yeah.
And then also, like, we can have solar lights too. We love solar lights. We got them later on. We have from the table to the tent, so we can actually find where we're going. We didn't have that, so we're just kind of stumbling through the dark, trying to figure out where everything is.
Yeah.
Rookie mistake. Even though we're not rookies, it happens.
It definitely happens. Yeah, I think headlamps is something that we've been pretty good on, though I remember, yeah, I think one of the last times that we went camping, and this was a pretty populated, honestly, kind of crowded, like campground. So there were light sources from many other spots and other people. So we didn't have too much trouble seeing certain paths, and like the bathhouse was well lit, so that was easy to find. But at our actual table, if we wanted to have dinner
Yeah.
or have a drink or play a game, we we ended up buying like one of those tiny little LED
Ooh.
lanterns, which has also helped us in power outages since at home. But it it's just really helpful. We didn't realize we wanted even something like that until we saw other people and we're like, oh, no wonder they're still hanging out outside because
Exactly.
they have like a little extra light source that isn't the headlamp.
Yeah.
Um,
Which is helpful. And the light source you can like we learn pick up as we go, and we use a lot of our backpacking stuff for that. But a headlamp is something I would recommend for sure. But I loved how you brought up something, and I think you know what I brought up is that what how we learned a lot what we wanted is through other people,
yes.
and that is how we learn. I mean, I'm Latina. I'm like a nosy. I am I'm too nosy sometimes. I
Yeah.
probably like ask too many questions and make people feel awkward. But when we go car camping, we always look at people's campsites. We're like, what are they using? What are they doing? I want to know their setup. You know, when it was raining, we were like driving, we were leaving. People who stayed longer, we're like, what are like if they stay longer, what are they doing? So we're driving super slow, driving safely, and we're just like, oh, that's a nice setup. Like, oh, we need that
Mm-hmm.
tarp side out. Like, oh man,
Yep.
they have a trailer. We need that trailer. So and that's what we do all the time. Before that, we're walking to people's like walking through, but that's a one way. It's how you can gain inspiration. I guess it's the way you can phrase it. You gain inspiration. It's like it's like
Yep.
a virtual Pinterest.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. And it's not just that. We've also had kind of fellow campers help us with lighting our fires, and we've just kind of learned techniques for kind of quick techniques for lighting fires. That was always because we do have one of those shoot, what are they called? The like Flintstone kind of things, or where you have to kind of chip away at it until it
Yes.
sparks. That's actually incredibly hard unless you're very well practiced with that. So,
I think we have one that we never use.
yeah,
I think it's like emergencies.
right. Yeah, we tried practicing at home once, even just like with our fire pit here, and it just took forever. So,
We just have two lighters in our camping kit. Actually, we might have three. We're like, oh, I'll just bring three instead of using. I have a Flintstone just in case.
Yeah. So even if it's not just like a gear related thing, we've still learned a lot from people around us who have either offered us help or, like you're saying, we've just kind of creeped over to see what they're doing.
And there's nothing wrong with
Yeah.
that at all. Like, and I guess a common theme is that you learn as you go and you grow and you build everything too along the way. You just think like you're cruising through it. Use what you have, like it's all common themes, and just it's car camping. Like it's not supposed to be anything stressful. It's not backpacking. Your car can bring everything. We actually bring way too much stuff because we're just kind of cautious, but it's okay. A car can handle it.
Yeah,
no big
car
deal.
can definitely handle it. I think we're getting to our Q&A time.
Oh yes, if any questions, please ask. Because we can go on and on about car camping. Like I love it so much. So please have any questions. And then I was gonna, since we're getting close to 4:50, because I have to cut off time.
A little early,
part
yeah.
two. But I do want to recommend that that when you start building your car camping kit, if you can get like a big tub, you can find this like $10 at Home Depot, or maybe go to Big Lots or like a clearance store. Any plastic container. We have one, and we just put all our camping stuff in it. We put like all our old pots, pans, cheap plastic plates that we were handed down. Anything we have, we just store everything. And it was the coolest thing because it just like it's a storage bin. It just We put it somewhere and it just sits there. It's concealed. And then when we came back, everything was there. We didn't have to go looking for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really easy to move everything. And it just makes it life so much easier. So I would recommend doing that. And it's just like you can find like a tub anywhere. I mean, not anywhere,
Yeah.
but you can still find it. Pretty.
Yeah. No, that's a great tip, and something that we don't do yet. We used to carry everything in like a ton of reusable shopping bags or boxes, and it's not, um, yeah, it's just not practical to do that.
We did it too. We finally got the bins. We were like, we just need a bin. We get us had too much stuff at that point.
Yeah. So to anyone joining, we're focusing on questions and comments about car camping, outdoor adventuring. Feel free to drop stuff in the comment box.
Yes. And we're having a part 2 next week with Erica from Pacific Northwest Happy Hikers. She didn't give us a bio yet, but she's amazing.
Yeah,
she's not Latina, but even though we're called Latinas who adventure, we are open to anyone. It's just that's who we are, and we interview anyone.
Yes.
So anyone's feel free to join the conversation, ask questions, and we can interview anyone.
Yeah. Yeah. Trying to be as inclusive as we can.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I don't know, do we have any kind of last comments while people think of questions or
yeah. And just so everyone knows who's still watching, we actually prepare for this. We actually spend like 30 minutes, it can range to 15 minutes, like an hour, and we chat about this, and we have like a long list of things to talk about. So we actually prepare for this. We got a question. What was your most challenging hike?
Ooh, do you want to go first or should I?
You go first.
Sure.
Think about this.
It is a very tough question. I think the most challenging hike that I can remember, there's a few. But the one that I would say was challenging both like in elevation gain and just kind of mentally was the Lassen Peak hike that I did, wow, almost 6 years ago at this point. In 2015, Lassen Peak is over 10,000 feet high.
Wow.
And you over something like 2.5 miles, if I remember correctly, you gain something like 2,000 or 3,000 feet in elevation. So it's very steep, a lot of switchbacks, completely open. It's amazing once you're up top because you can see Mount Shasta and you can see kind of the surrounding Sierras. And we had a super clear day, but it was definitely one of those things where it's very exhausting to climb. And on the way down, I definitely had that kind of like altitude dizziness because it's just open, and just kind of doing all the switchbacks on the way down. I had to stop, pace myself more. And so that was not something I was used to from hiking.
Sounds very challenging. I gotta try that out. I'm like, I can write that down. Lassen Peak.
Lassen Peak is really awesome. It's incredibly popular, so you have to get there early. But
yes. I passed by Lassen National Park, right?
Yeah.
Yes, on the PCT. So that was the one when I had hit it, and we walked through it, and we spent the night there. Okay, and for mine, of course, it's gonna be about the PCT. And it's not, well, of course that was the most challenging hike, but my most challenging day on the PCT was when we had to hike up Forester Pass because this is like in the Sierra and it's in the snow. And if anyone doesn't know, I'm from Houston. Like Houston, Concrete Jungle was the first like snowstorm we had in like 100, like this crazy storm, like over 100 years. So I only saw the snow like 3 times in my entire life. And here I am, like hiking 50 miles in the snow. I'm going to be that guy from the Rugrats, like Grandpa. I hiked 15 miles in the snow. That person. I don't care. I want to be that person. But we had to hike up Forester Pass in the snow, and we actually joined a group of a group invited us, which made it a lot easier. And it was so cool because there was like 20 of us. It was like they invited us 5 with their group, and we were 20 of us hiking up this mountain, but it's in the snow. So like I literally like you have to like you're climbing like straight up. And it's in like my my 4th experience in the snow. and I'm just there with my whippet, which is like a trekking pole, but has like a ice axe
Mm-hmm.
in a bit. And I'm just hiking up, and there's steps there like people had because people hiked up there, but I was just kind of hiking up this, kind of look down, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, I am not a mountaineer, but this moment I am. And
Yes.
then they're going to the highest like pass and like the highest point in the PCT trail. Mount Whitney is the highest point, but it's like not on the trail. And I am only doing it because there's a group of 20 people, and if I can't do it, like there's no way going back. Like
Yeah.
you can only go forward unless the SOS, because going back is just all snow and going down, because we hiked up a bunch of mountains, so I had to go up these mountains again. I was like, I'm not going back.
Yeah.
So it's like SOS, are doing this, and but luckily I had a great support group, and people were just like screaming, yelling, like woohoo! And I did it. And then
Nice.
when I'm going down, you actually go stay down, because it's actually really scary to hike down. So the safest way to go down is just sliding down. So
Mm-hmm.
that was the fun part, but that was still one of the challenging parts of my hike, because I'm not a snow person. I'm trying to be. I eventually, because it thinks of Kika, who we talked to, now I'm going to try to get third chance and try to get familiar with the snow, like with snowboarding. But man, that was challenging, scary, put me in my
Sounds
comfort zone. I was
really,
like,
really scary, I have to
yeah.
say. I've seen people go sading, and it's so easy to start tumbling and just rolling down a mountain, a very big mountain, and I've never tried that.
It is fun, but luckily the
But
backpack, it's like 30 pounds. It kind of weighs you back, and you use your trekking poles as to guide you, which is kind of cool. So that's kind
yeah.
of like, and your trekking poles can like use as a brake, as like a lever. So that's how you can like slow yourself down. It's like I was actually videoing me like sliding down kind of very gracefully, but Steven was just
Nice.
like zoof down. He had no care, he was like no brakes on him, and I was like, we thought he wasn't going to stop. But yeah, that was one of the most challenging hikes I've had. But I did it.
Nice. Nice.
Okay.
Yeah, that was an awesome question. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Um,
But I still want to do Lassen Peak though. That sounds awesome.
Lassen Peak is, I can only recommend. I love volcanoes, and you get to hike around the actual crater and look down into this little crater lake and everything. So, yeah, I think that was one of those pivotal kind of hiking moments. Like, yeah, I need to do this more. So,
That's awesome. Okay. Any
yeah.
other questions here? So those are gonna wrap up.
Yeah, it can be about camping, hiking, gear,
Anything.
safety. We'll try to keep it short.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, I'm a talker. That's why we're in Clubhouse too. Like, because like it's really cool because it's like an audio conversation. You can actually have a lot more of these types, like that, but it's without the video. So, and also if anyone's on Clubhouse, make sure to tune into our chats on Tuesday. And it's a lot more conversational.
Yes. Yeah. A lot more conversational and interactive, I think.
Yeah, which I love about that.
But yeah, I think if we're not going to have any more questions, thank you everyone for joining. Remember that next week we're going to have our awesome guest, Erica from Pacific Northwest Happy Hikers, or PNW Happy Hikers, I think, on Instagram.
Follow.
She is awesome, and you will not regret following her. I'm super excited to talk to her next week.
Me too. She's so amazing, and we talked to her like back and forth, and we actually video chat with her. That's why we got closer the past few months. So that's why you had to bring her on. She is just amazing, genuine, authentic, and she likes to go like hiking into winter. And she hikes in winter with her kids too. So I admire her for doing that. Like, man, like, so if anyone who has a kids and you want to learn about how to hike in the winter with your kids, like, you please, like, Erica is someone is amazing. She goes all the elements. So I admire her for all of that. I look up to her.
Definitely. You can learn a lot from her, and she's just so generous to be able to join us.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you again. And
yeah, you too.
Closing thoughts. Make sure to leave no trace behind and leave it better than you found it.
Yeah, and wear a mask and just be aware of where you're visiting. Please don't drive too far if you're going to take a road trip.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone. Guys, girls and guys. Sorry, I had to stop saying
everyone,
that.
Yep.
Everyone.
It's all right.
Thank you.